I hope everybody's doing well. My name is Connor Henwood. I'm an account manager here at Zerion Software. I specialize and work with a lot of my engineering customers, field service in whole, as a general in whole, as well as oil and gas and utilities. Really, anything with spatial component is obviously what I specialize in, as my previous history is in GIS analyst. And working with the GIS industry for about 3 or 4 years before I joined the Zerion team. I was actually a customer before I joined Zerion, so the whole platform in general here at Zerion has been very familiar with me even before I put on the t-shirt. So just wanted to get that out there and clear just before I continue the webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and continue here. Obviously, the webinar today is about our relationship with ESRI, ESRI, and it's the value of planning smarter, not harder. Obviously, we want to accelerate mobile workflow in the field. Spatial component is huge to field services. Engineering, like I said, all the industries across the country, across the world are leveraging our platform to collect really good data, but they're also leveraging the ESRI platform to collect spatial data and make sure that, obviously it visually shows you the spatial data from there. So I'm going to run through a few slides here and a couple demonstrations. I'm also going to have my coworker Ben Ray at the very end to show a little bit more, dive into the weeds on the technical side of how we're connecting with SQL Server, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. First slide, I'd always like to talk about the history we have with ESRI. I think it's great how the timeline basically explains it here. From the get-go, Zerion Data Collector, it gives you the ability to collect data out in the field and complex and robust data. We heard story after story and use case after use case from our customers that are constantly leveraging, whether it's ESRI, whether it's any sort of mapping source, but mainly ESRI in the field. Is there a way we can visually digitize on a map, being able to spatially see your data, pre-existing GIS data, and then obviously collect data with Zerion Data Collector? So we listened to our customers and we decided it's the best move for Zerion to gain this partnership with ESRI or ESRI. So again, just moving down the timeline here, we were awarded Best New Partner in 2014. It's funny because when I joined the team informed me that they had a meeting with Jack Dangerman, who is the CEO of ESRI. Essentially, Jack said it best. ESRI is the where, Zerion is the what. And again, field services is our expertise. We want to obviously excel mobile data collection as a whole, but then also give you the ability to work with ESRI's platform and move forward from there. Again, this is very fresh of mind, as Zerion had a presence out at the ESRI UC last week or 2 weeks ago. So it's very fresh in mind, and a lot of our customers were there. And one thing that we constantly heard from the use cases is we believe where ESRI falls off and where Zerion picks up is collecting that robust, complex data, the one-to-many related tables, the many-to-many related tables. We want to focus on what matters most with collecting good data. As you'll see in my demonstration here shortly, we were able to start from our collector, visually see the map, be able to digitize point line or polygon or vector data, and then able to actually trigger a form straight from collector and automate the process, passing over parent information. And that's where we believe that ESRI kind of falls off and where we pick up. The Art Collector application actually gives you the ability to collect parent data. But when you have to dive in multi layers deep into a form with, we have customers that have almost 25 subforms within or related tables within their mobile data collection forms. So a lot of great stuff going on there, and I just wanted to get that point across. Again, we want to work better with ESRI. Mapping is important to my customers and is important to our organization, as field services, as we believe, is our expertise. Whether it's inspections, surveys, you name it. I mean, constant work order distribution, assigning records out to the field to complete work orders. You have to drive to an asset. You have to drive to a location. That location has a XY coordinate. It's important that obviously, we work better with the top dog in the geospatial side of the industry, and that is ESRI. So this brings me to my next point here. I'm going to go ahead and actually share my screen with my device. Let's see here. All right. And Barrett, is there any questions?
So, Connor, there have been a couple questions or comments, but for the most part, people are really excited to see this next demo and kind of see the whole process from end to end.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, I hope everybody can see my screen here. So what I'm going to do is actually start from collector and then actually trigger a form within Zerion data collection and then fill out some information and show some of the back-end processes that Zerion gives you the ability to do.
And Connor, there are some people who actually haven't heard of collector before, so if you wouldn't mind just touching upon that too.
Perfect. So ESRI as a whole, obviously their expertise is geospatial sciences and GIS. It's a software that allows basically you to visually see your data in basically a map format, and then to be able to edit and manipulate data from there. They actually came out with Arc Collector, which is essentially what I just clicked on. It's the ability to see your GIS data. You're able to overlay your feature layers, your shape files. Even a KML format would work within this particular application. So a KML file is basically a Google Earth file. So what I wanted to do is quickly dive into Collector. So Collector, again, gives you the ability to overlay your geospatial data, your feature layers, etc. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to click on essentially an asset. Now this asset is a pre-existing GIS data layer. So to put it into a use case, if I'm an engineering firm that is focusing on sanitary sewer or SSES, and I receive data from the city that I'm working with as my customer, they're going to provide all the existing manhole data that the city currently has. My job as an engineering firm is to go to each asset, inspect, and then report on each asset as a whole. In this case, manholes. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start from collector because it's going to be able to visually see pre-existing data. You never know how many times in the field you get out to the field and assets are moved. Construction has happened on the street. There's new streets that pop up with new manholes that have been basically embedded into the ground to where the city doesn't even really know or have record of that. So being able to leverage the relationship we have with ESRI and use collector and create a point, line, or polygon on the spot. And then actually, if you need to go in and create that and collect that robust data, you're able to use the Zerion platform. So again, I'm going to dive in here. As you can see, name of inspector is myself, Connor. Date of inspection, address. These are essentially parent information that you can fill out straight from ESRI. But again, where ESRI falls off and Zerion picks up, we believe in our eyes, is the ability to collect complex data. So what I'll do is I'll actually trigger the form. So as soon as I hit that link, my hands are off the device.
And Connor, there is a little bit of a lag or a delay. So if you could slow it down a little bit, that would be great.
Perfect. So hopefully everybody can see the form. What that did was it passed over the ESRI widget, which is the object ID or the unique identifier within pre-existing GIS data. So essentially, you're not losing your object ID from pre-existing data, and now you're able to collect data about that asset, in this case, a manhole, and then dive into related tables that will all connect to your pre-existing GIS database. Now, I know that may sound a little complex, but feel free to ask questions, and I'll make sure to answer those. So as you can see, auto-population, data automation equals data integrity. We want to auto-populate fields as much as possible, especially within the form. So, less fat fingering helps with less QA/QC in the office, which saves time and money. So what I'm going to do is just run through the form quickly and show you some of the back-end processes. So of course, I'm going to actually collect a new GPS point. Something to keep in mind, whenever a new form is started within Zerion data collection, metadata is captured in the background. So not only do I have a GPS location service field within my form, metadata is captured in the background. That's X, Y, that's latitude, longitude, username, compass direction, wind speed, and elevation. So as you can see, some of the parent location service information will be shown right there. What that did was that auto-populated my address. Goes back to data automation is important to this. As you can see, it auto-populated the nearby weather. It's very rare. It's actually, I'm located in Dallas, Texas. So for it to be 76 and sunny is a blessing to me. So it's actually a great day. And again, this is using the Zerion suite of tools to leverage and centralize data and pull in different sources. And I'll get through integrations here shortly. So what I'll do is I'll just type in a couple information here, parent data. So inspection ID is 1234. As you can see, this is parent information. What we want to do is we want to dive into related table, but in Zerion's terms, we like to call them subforms. So this is a one-to-many subform. What I'm going to do is go in and collect data about the asset or the manhole. So I'll type in 1234. This can also be auto-populated due to whatever ID you put within the parent form. But for demo purposes, I'm going to keep typing in. As you can see, you're going to have drop-down lists. There's also fuzzy search if the list gets too long. A lot of customers that are leveraging ESRI or ESRI pre-existing data, they're going to have list upon list upon list, and they could get very bulky. So you're able to use smart fuzzy search to drill down on particular item or particular type of manhole that it is. So I'm going to say it's type manhole.
Just with the form that you have right now too, you mentioned, or we saw that you actually went in and you typed in the manhole ID. You also said that you could have already had it in a database and had a lookup happen from there. But we also see that you have the Manatee Works element, so that barcode scanning. So you really have 3 different options for this manhole ID. Is that correct?
Of course, of course. I apologize. I skipped right over that. So again, as I said, everything's pre-existing in this case. So if I were to type in 1234, Smart Table Lookup Search feature within the Zerion platform is able to trigger a pre-existing table. Once you trigger that table, then you're able to see all kinds of data associated with that, and it'll auto-populate the form. This again speeds up mobile data collection. Again, as Barrett mentioned, I'm able to use my Manatee Works widget, which can actually trigger a barcode. We have customers and current customers that have RFID tags or barcodes that are on manholes or on certain assets within data collection features or in the field. So speeding up that process and auto-populating the form, and again, is you're going to hear me say it 100 times, but it's very important. So what I'll do is I'll keep running through the form here. And as you can see, I'll take a picture of the manhole. I just have a cup here in my house. So what I'll do is I'll continue here. Let's say that the asset moved. There was construction that the city wasn't fully aware of, and the GPS point moved, so I need to take actually a different GPS point. Okay. And now I'm going to click manhole infraction. I'm going to collect any infraction information about the manhole. So this is actually, we are 3 levels deep into the form now, and that's very important. Again, looping back around to the ESRI platform where it gives you the ability to visually see your data, but you're not able to go really, really deep into the form, you know, table by table or one-to-many or many-to-many related tables. Our platform allows for that robust, and it's built from the guts up to where you're actually to dive in and collect complex data. So I'm going to say it's infraction 1. If I say it's low severity, nothing happens. Again, this is where Zerion data collection skip logic can really take place. So if you know, the infraction is medium, that's fine. It's going to email my supervisor. But if it's high, I need to call my supervisor. A lot of things I stress to my customers, especially field service customers, is there's always a big disconnect from the field to the office. The people in the office that are sitting there, QA/QCing, the project managers, the senior PMs, the GIS analysts of the world, they're actually seeing this data coming in and they're having to report on it. So obviously good data is the best way for them to report and accurately and then obviously efficiently. So if I'm able to, you know, if I see a major infraction or if I see something that's so important out in the field, leverage the smart device that you are using our application on. So in this case, I want to FaceTime my supervisor, show them the infraction, get the city ordinance on it, make sure that you can act immediately. So I'm going to say this is demo, and I want to take an infraction photo. Another best practice with photos is we like to make those one-to-many. You never know how many photos you need to take in the field. In this case, it's just embedded within the form, but I always preach as best practice, make sure your photo widget is one-to-many. I can add an audio note if I need to, or I can hit done. So what that's going to do, it's going to store right there. I added this at the end, at the very end to show during the report section of this demo, but I want to add quickly here. basically the incoming pipe is from the north and the outgoing pipe is from the south. So essentially, I want to know the flow of, in this case, sanitary sewer. I want to know which way the flow is going. What this does is it helps with back-end project managers that are putting together workflow diagrams, that are putting together flow charts depending on which way the flow is going due to the elevation of the earth. You're able to detect a lot of information just from which way the flow is going. So I'm going to hit done. Again, that's going to store there. I can dive in and collect as many manholes as possible. That's the importance. That's the genius behind this platform. Something else to keep in mind, as you can see at the top left, I do have Wi-Fi signal. A lot of my field services do have cell signal. Whenever you are collecting data on the mobile device, everything you do is offline and assumes offline. We are a native application that assumes that. So very important there. What I'll do is I'll just sign off on this quick. Date of next inspection, let's just say it's a month from today. And I want to email this report to myself, or I maybe need to email it to a supervisor since it was a high infraction. Maybe he needs to send that on to the customer, or she needs to send that on to the customer immediately. Again, so the form is filled out. We were 3 levels deep within the form. I'm going to hit done. While that's uploading, I want to show you one more thing here, strictly from the Zerion data collector. So at the beginning of the demo, I started from ARC Collector. That is ESRI's application for visually seeing GIS data and collecting parent information in the field. In this case, I want to start from Zerion data collection. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start a form, and it's actually going to open up a map. So if I hit where I'm located here in Dallas, Texas, I zoom in a little bit. One thing my customers have always wanted and have always seen, and actually it's funny, at the ESRI conference last week or 2 weeks ago, I had a customer that didn't even know this feature existed, and he's been working with us for 2 to 3 years. So what this feature does is it allows you to shoot an offset GPS point. Maybe this manhole is behind a gated fence that is secure, or maybe your asset or your utility or your pipeline is running through an easement that you can't get to, or you physically can't get over there to shoot the point and collect data about it. So what I can do is I can actually start a new form by hitting the plus sign up in the top right. What that's going to do is it's going to bring up crosshairs here. So what I can do is actually change the base map, and I can actually dive in and shoot a GPS point. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the GPS point, or the GPS of where I'm standing is actually going to be collected using the metadata when I started this form. So what I'll do is, if I'm inside the pool area there, I'm going to shoot it from the outside. And at the very top of the form, the ESRI widget latitude and longitude is going to be that GPS offset GPS point. And again, I don't want to run through the form again, just wanted to show you that feature. Since I collected the data, I want to make sure I show exactly what happens on the back end. And this is something what we'll dive into here shortly. Again, a lot of stories I heard from my customers at the ESRI conference was I think ESRI is great at visually showing your data, but some of the data processing on the back end can be a little tough, or it doesn't really have the features we need. So Zerion, obviously built from the guts up, we want to focus on automating workflows. So using the Zerion Suite and Dataflow Automation and custom reports that we're about to dive into, I want to go ahead and show, as soon as I hit done in the field, what's triggered straight to my email or straight to my supervisor's email. So for instance, hi there, the attached inspection was just submitted at this address. Please let me know if you have any questions. Again, we can automate this process. And now I have a PDF custom report that I built through the Zerion platform.
Hey, Connor.
As you can see, yes, ma'am.
I just want to mention this. I know we're going through the visualization, but at some point when you're done with this portion, can you just take a step back and go into the applications again and show how you launched Data Collector from the ESRI app?
Yep, that's coming right up, actually.
Perfect. I just wanted to go back to that because some people didn't see that initial step. Okay,
great. Yeah, and I'll actually quickly dive into ArcGIS Online to show the quick configuration of that as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
So as you can see on the PDF report, just some parent information there. Depending on the different type of outgoing and ingoing pipe, I have arrows depicting the flow, weather conditions, etc. All right, jumping back in here. If I open collector, is there still a little bit of a lag, Barrett?
Just a little bit. So if you can just wait a couple seconds after you launch it, I think that would be helpful.
Great. So again, this is where I started. I started because it has my pre-existing GIS data. I need to go inspect on this data and collect complex data. So for instance, as you can see in the far right, even if I throw this over and I select a new manhole, it's going to bring over name of inspector is Ben. So the Ben has been assigned this work order, assigned this inspection. He has to go complete the inspection. So as you can see, there's a link embedded in the parent information table on the right-hand side below address. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select that. As soon as I hit that link, due to our relationship with ESRI and what we call the ESRI Zerion connector, we actually have basically the embedded GIS data, or the form, or the web map that you're seeing here is connected to a Zerion form, and I'll show you how here in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. Once I selected, oh, excuse me, I was embedded into a form there. Let me jump back. I had a form open. That's why the connection didn't work. So what I'll do is I'll jump back out, and now I'm back in collector. As soon as I hit that link, it's going to trigger a form and pass over any parent information. So for instance, this use case doesn't give you a lot of parent information to see here. We have a different demo, or we even have customers that have, maybe 20 to 25 fields or even more in collector, and they're able to pass over all of that information to then dive into these related table, into these inspections and collecting the complex data. I hope that answered some questions there. My hands were off the device as soon as I clicked the link. So how did that happen? How did that connection happen? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to dive back into the slide deck here, and I'm going to shoot over, and I'm going to dive into ArcGIS Online. So I'm in ArcGIS Online. I'm in the same web map as I was just showing on my mobile device. As you can see, same data as you saw on the mobile device. Well, how did I trigger that form? It's very simple. Once the connection is made between softwares, and it's very simple, it just has to go through the Zerion connector, and we can help you out with that in terms of the connection being made there. I'm going to go ahead and click the table properties on engineering manual inspection feature layer. I'm going to go to configure pop-up. What that does is it brings me up a configuration tab. I'm going to hit configure. And as you can see, is what you saw on the mobile device. I'm actually going to hit this hyperlink here. Excuse me. I'm going to highlight it and hyperlink. And as you can see, what this does is it triggers the URL scheme that is embedded within the form. So in your Zerion application or in the Zerion Software Suite, you're able to basically copy and paste the URL of your form into the configuration of the pop-up, and it's able to make that connection and trigger a form in the mobile device. And if there are any questions that dive a little bit deeper into the weeds there, Ben will feel free to help out as well. All right, so with that being said, I wanted to dive back in here and show you just, again, kind of the workflow that I completed is from collector to Zerion, and being able to show the report that was automatically generated from the backend.
So one question that came in while you were presenting is that you could log multiple points in one form, and they're wondering if once you've logged those multiple locations, how does that then translate to your map? Is there only going to be one point, or are you able to have all location data from that one record in that map?
Of course. So collector works both ways. It's a two-way road with our connection with Zerion and collector. So essentially, I started from collector. I triggered a map, or I triggered a record within Zerion. If I was actually going in there and creating, say, instead of just one manhole, I actually created or started 4 different manhole inspections within that one form. So the 3 other manhole inspections I did are obviously going to have an XY coordinate associated with that. Due to the connection and the relationship we have with ESRI, when I hit done within the form or within Zerion, what that's going to do is it's going to ping the cloud server that has the connection made between ESRI, and that's going to auto-populate the web map. All I would have to do is refresh the web map to see the new points and the new information collected about those new points. And again, this is actually a great segue into the next slide here. How does it work? I obviously showed you a very high level of how you configure the pop-up. But a lot of our customers need all this data to go straight into a SQL Server or ArcGIS server, et cetera. And Ben is going to be doing some demonstrations on how that works here in just a few minutes. I hope that answered your question, Barrett.
Yeah, I think so. It was just accounting for the multiple records or having one parent record with multiple subforms that have different location data. So I think,
of course,
that's great.
Great. Okay, great. I want to go ahead and just dive into GPS. Obviously, this is a geospatial type of webinar talking about our relationship with ESRI. GPS is important, right? So at a very high level, unfortunately, I know a lot about GPS, but at a very high level, essentially there's two types of GPS. There's GPS and there's a GPS. It stands for assisted GPS. So if your crews or your organization is out collecting data in the field and they're using cell signal, what that cell signal is going to do is it's going to basically take the satellite. The satellite is actually going to connect to your nearest cell tower to bounce a deflective signal from the cell tower to your location. So as you can see at the very far left, with all these satellites pointing straight to the direction, there's a couple multipath errors. Maybe you're under a heavy tree canopy. Maybe you're under electrical wiring. Maybe you're out in the middle of the desert or the middle of Africa, and you basically can't collect the point using an AGPS type workflow. So a lot of our customers are using GPS type workflow, which essentially uses external hardware or external GPS, GNSS capable units or external hardware, et cetera. So what that does is that actually leverages the triangulation. So essentially, it won't just be one or three particular satellites connecting to a cell tower. It'll actually connect straight to you. And this actually goes straight into our integrations with external GPS receivers. So the integrations with external GPS receivers is a lot of our customers need to meet scope on certain projects. As much and as advanced as Apple and Android are getting with their smart devices, they're still not going to get you within that, that scope that says you have to be within sub-meter or within 5 feet of a certain asset with your GPS shot. So all of the external hardware providers are jumping on, working with smart devices. As you can see in the pictures here, Trimble R1, Bad Elf, the Aero series, Juniper Systems Geode. A lot of these people and a lot of our current customers are using these external GPS hardwares to actually collect data. And what this does is whenever you connect a external GPS hardware to the smart device, what happens is Zerion Software pulls the location on the actual operating system of the device. So whenever you connect through Bluetooth an external receiver, that's going to override the location services on the smart device, which essentially gives you the ability to talk directly to an external GNSS receiver to obviously shoot a high accuracy shot. Moving along, I wanted to dive quickly for those customers or those new customers, hopefully some attendees that we met at the ESRI conference a couple weeks back. I wanted to dive quickly into the Zerion Suite. It's essentially 3 stages of Zerion, right? It's Zerion Data Collection, Zerion Dataflow Automation, and Zerion Custom Reports, and how important this is. I mentioned it earlier, right? Whenever you're working with Zerion, we focus on good data and we focus on what it matters most, and that's accelerating mobile workflow. So obviously, it all starts with Zerion Data Collection, and there's 3 things we like to hang our hat on, especially from our data collection type platform. One, that's flexible form building. Being able to embed 20 to 30 different element types within your form, being able to use one-to-many related tables, being able to use JavaScript with it, whether it's page level or element level. You're able to use encryption. Again, we are a native application that assumes offline. Maximum security is something we focus on and we really take serious. And we want to make sure that all data is encrypted through SSL transfer from the device and from the field when connection is made to the cloud server, then obviously wherever the data needs to go, whether that's your backend systems, whether it's to be manually exported off the platform, etc. And again, as I mentioned, whenever a Zerion form is started, offline takes over. We want to assume offline at all times, even if you do have connection on your device. Well,
So there's a quick question for you before we go too far into Dataflow Automation and Zerion. There was a question about high accuracy, and there was someone who mentioned that the metadata actually never show the sub-meter accuracy, and they were wondering if you had any solution for that. If not, we're happy. I can tell this individual that we can schedule another time to look into it a little bit deeper. But just from your insight, has anything like that come about for you?
It has. I would like to schedule something anyways with that customer, just to talk through kind of what devices are being used, what devices are being connected to the smart device. And we've had a couple issues here or there in terms of different signal and different cell towers that are connecting while you're moving. But in terms of the metadata, it depends on where you want to grab that sub-meter accuracy from. We have groups that are having it tied straight to the location service widget, or actually, if he's not seeing it in the metadata, or she's not seeing it in the metadata, that's something we can have the engineers and the technical team look at just to make sure that that connection's being made. Again, we just got to make sure that it's a use case by use case, but 90% of the time it's gonna obviously pick up through the metadata.
Right. I think it was just the accuracy wasn't sub-meter, but I'll definitely reach out to them and let them know that we can schedule a time later to dive a little bit deeper.
Cool. Thank you. Moving along, Dataflow Automation. Again, I just want to touch at a very high level. This is the workflow engine. Again, Zerion is built off our mobile data collection application. It gives you the ability to collect that complex, robust data. But from a data processing standpoint, what's next? Where's that data going? How do you control where the data is going? And everything starts from a webhook. Now, again, this is a workflow engine. This is where we store big data, long-term storage. I believe that it's Zerion's best product in terms of actually manipulating your data, aggregating, filtering, flattening. A lot of engineering customers may have, forms or fields that are collecting about pipes. So you may have to collect 20 to 25 different pipes going through a location. You're able to now flatten all that data and now streamline into backend processes like Arc Server or like SQL Server, et cetera. We want to take a lot more workload off our developers. For the current customers that have been with us from the beginning, the API is very powerful, but if forms or form changes or anything's made on the front end, you need to reflect that change in the backend API. With Dataflow Automation, this is going to be able to, again, centralize and create this workflow engine that now you're able to flatten, process the data quicker, and create into action outputs. One of those action outputs and a couple of those action outputs is SQL Server, different types of servers, actually recreating a form straight from depending on different conditions that are met within the form, et cetera. And it's all real time. And again, as I showed you on the device, Zerion Documents gives you the ability to create your own custom PDF document. And that's very simple in terms of being able to tie your form element field names to the actual form or the PDF form that you're seeing there, and then you're able to continue on workflows from there. So real-time document deliveries are very important, especially as I mentioned with a high infraction or your customer needs certain certain reports from yesteryear or yesterday and need to make sure that's moved forward from there. And just moving along here, data visualization with Zerion reports, being able to give your customer insights, to be able to track, monitor, and gain insight about current field inspections. And I speak a lot from the industries I work with, which are, again, engineering firms, oil and gas, utilities, et cetera. And there's just such a distance between the field and the office. So when data is being synced out in the field constantly, no matter if you have 2 crews out in the field or 100, you're able to actually see live data being populated through bar charts, graphs, pivot tables, analytics, KPIs are all through Zerion reports. And a lot of our customers are really, really interested in starting to adapt that as well, that have already hopped on board with us. So it's really good stuff. With that being said, I want to go ahead and give the floor to Ben Ray. A lot of our customers, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, are using the collector to Zerion application and basically making that connection in the front end, but they need all that data to be populating the backend SQL Server. So,
all right, welcome everyone. Really excited to be here today. I do really want to focus on one core part of our platform here, and that really is going to be integrating our data directly with ArcGIS Server, and as well as the Arc collector and our catalog, and some of those details there. So some more of the traditional software you may have used from the ArcGIS side. So I have a form pulled up here, and inside of this form I have one point that's been captured to date. So I'm going to tap on this point here and open it up. And in this, you're just going to see a basic form. I'm not going to bore you with the details here, since Connor went over a couple form examples in the past. But basically what I'm doing is I'm capturing a parent form, and then at the bottom here, I'm going to capture one-to-many photos. And what we're going to do, and I think this will answer some other folks' questions, we're going to write this to separate tables inside of a SQL Server environment. That's going to then allow us to use those in ArcMap or our catalog as a new connection to SQL Server. So once I have that, I'm just going to hit done here, and it's going to upload this data to the cloud. Now what's going to happen at this point is our data is going to go into our Zerion Dataflow Automation platform, and inside of here we're going to see that a new record was added, and this is an example data flow. I don't think Connor went into this too much, but what you're going to see is as the data is sent from our data collector app into the Zerion Dataflow, we're going to see that our record data is sitting right here. So again, this is everything that I just collected, all the details about the site, all the inspection photos that I've taken here. And the power behind Dataflow is that we're really able to do some magic in the middle here. And what we're actually doing is, if we look at the logic I put in here, I'm actually taking the modified location, which is all the details Connor was mentioning earlier, longitude, latitude, speed, altitude, and compass direction. I'm just parsing out the latitude and the longitude. So this is just using some simple JavaScript, similar to JavaScript you'd write in a form. And these two fields here are then going to be written into a SQL Server table. So since I just submitted that, I do have an action set up here. So this action, as you can see, it is a SQL Server. So I have two things that happen here. This is the parent information that gets written to SQL Server, and then there's actually two photographs that get written to SQL Server as well. So I've had this configured, and we're going to hop over into our SQL Server environment, and we're just going to pull the latest rows that have been submitted here. So here's our latest record we have, ID 57, and you see it wrote all the details directly into this SQL Server database here, pretty much in real time. And here's everything like the address, city, state that we saw earlier. And then finally, way at the end here, you see the latitude and longitude. So this is, again, the location where that point was originated. Now, maybe you have a location widget on your form or something else on your form. You could change the logic in Dataflow to read that latitude and longitude. So that's for the parent table. And as well, you're going to see in the subform table where we captured our photographs, this is a different table. So you would want to relate these in some way in ArcGIS server or desktop to meet your needs there. But we're going to see there's two ID 57s. And then if we scroll over, we see here's the two photographs I took. I took one on my Android phone and one of the coffee mugs that we had. And again, you do see these points are just a little different based on my accuracy at that time. So I'm not going to be able to show how you work in ArcMap simply because I don't have it installed on here. But inside of ArcMap, for example, you'd want to add a new data source. And that data source would be a SQL Server environment that you have. So if you're using a different type of database, unfortunately, we don't support that right now. We do only support SQL Server, but we'll be looking at more in the future there. So you connect that, and then you can specify your latitude and longitude as those fields. And then from there, you'd be able to build your points. That same type of functionality could also occur on ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Server as well, as long as you are using a SQL Server there.
So Ben, there was a question about using HTTP post to connect. Is that something that people could consider?
Yeah, absolutely. Inside of Zerion Dataflow, we do support an HTTP post, and you could certainly use that there. Now, there may be challenges or things like authentication that you may need to worry about, but we have successfully done it before with a couple customers in the past, and if you're looking to try that out, feel free to reach out to me and let's work on it here. But I believe there's multiple APIs in ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Server that could be used, and we could send all of our data across here, such as like our latitude and longitude if we wanted to as well. So I think there's definitely some potential to do that as well.
So there's also a common question that we get that just came up on this call too, is the ability to use SharePoint.
Yeah, well, in regards to SharePoint, I mean, right now that's not something that we have in our pipeline there, but we'd love to hear about it a little more and see what you're actually looking for in SharePoint. Because I know there's ways to upload different database, like a database table, or maybe it's a PDF document that you want to share, or maybe it's just like raw Excel data. That'd be certainly an action that we would be pretty interested in adding to our current actions list today. But on this, I mean, I think the key points to keep in mind are that inside of Dataflow, you can really process and refine your data. If you don't like the current way our ArcGIS connector is working by only using the ESRI widget data or created or modified, you could customize that a little more using Zerion Dataflow and right to your in-house SQL server that you have. Now, this may be running ArcGIS, or it may just be a SQL server that you have for uses on your own end. But I think regardless, it can work really well and provide kind of an instant real-time transfer of this data. So with that said, I'm going to pass it back here to Connor to close out then.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Again, just moving along here. We wanted to add this slide into the presentation or to the webinar here today, just because this is something that we are working on internally at Zerion Software. We like to call this R&D, or research and development, to excel our mapping features within Zerion, right? So we want to give our customers, the ability to start from a map with your existing GIS layers, very similar to Collector, but in terms, again, we're not going to ever be ESRI. We don't want to be ESRI. We want to work with ESRI. But if we can provide our customers almost a lighter solution to where they're using it as a reference point, or they're able to actually trigger and open a form straight from a map on Zerion Data Collector, or they're able to actually get directions to an asset straight from our application, that's the goal. And then obviously being able to export things into GIS formats. Again, this is R&D. We are working on this and making sure that we can move forward with some of this R&D type work internally in Zerion. And we're excited to hear your feedback on it. We want to know more about what our current customers are doing, what they're looking for. If you are using Collector to trigger forms into Zerion Data Collector, are you digitizing GIS data on Collector? Are you creating new point signs and polygons? If so, that's great. Keep using our connector. But if you're strictly using it to actually visually see your existing data and then trigger forms or even get directions, we're able to actually embed that into one application. And we're looking forward to obviously getting started with this and moving forward with some of this R&D type work. With that being said, I want to say thanks for listening in. Obviously, I want to continue the conversation. I like talking in the GIS terms in a more personal standpoint, where I can learn a little bit more about exactly what your workflow is, and then we can shape the conversation from there. Again, this is something that I think is very important. Field services is our expertise. Inspections, surveys, you name it, are what people are coming to us for, and what our software does best. We're accelerating mobile workflow, and if you do take one thing from today, make sure that you want to collect good data, because good data equals good processing, good reports. So with that being said, Barrett, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
With that, big thank you to Connor and Ben for taking time out of your schedule, and a big thank you for all of you listeners. We really appreciate your insight, your feedback, and your time. So have a wonderful rest of the day.